This demonstration is a short demonstration to show you how to cut a pattern for a sleeve placket. So this might be on a traditional shirt sleeve that you're going to put a placket on. This particular placket is all done in one pattern piece. As usual, there are different ways of cutting patterns, but today I'm going to show you an all-in-one pattern piece to make this sleeve placket. First of all, a straight line. And then I want to give myself a seam allowance. Now this is for, if this is the sleeve, this seam allowance is for the bottom of the sleeve. Then I need to make a mark for the slit. So at right angles, I'm going to draw my line up and make my slit about 10 centimetres long. This is a pattern I've already done, and I'll just leave that there so you can see that. So that line is going to be the slit. So either side of the slit, I'm going to allow for a 0.5 seam allowance. I'm only going to do 0.5 seam allowance because it's such a small pattern piece. You don't really want to have clumpy seams around. And I've indicated it with a dotted line because that's actually where you're going to sew. So this side of the pattern is for the bound edge underneath. Now I allow 2 centimetres for that. I have used 1.5 in the past, but it's been too fiddly to sew. So 2 centimetres for the underneath binding, and then I'm going to allow 1 centimetre above where I've stitched to make my opening. Now this side of the pattern piece needs to be the width of the placket that you want. So that depends upon you as the designer, how wide you're going to make that placket. This one's 2.5, so I'm going to do 2.5 and that's the fold line. So I need to do another 2.5 and now I want a seam allowance on there. So the first 2.5 is the underneath bit, the second 2.5 I did is the top, and then a seam allowance so I can turn it in here when I'm sewing. Now you need to extend the top and create this box. So I usually would do possibly 2 centimetres, no more. Again, it depends on how big your design is. Don't forget to give yourself a seam allowance down that side. So all around this little top box here you've got seam allowance. And that's the placket pattern piece. I will just cut it out. And that's the pattern piece to your placket. When you start to sew this placket on, you work from the wrong side of your garment and you place the wrong side of your placket facing up. And the first thing you will do is make what I call this letterbox shape, stitching around here. You then cut up the centre into the corners here and you push it all through, and then you can turn and finish off the binding underneath and the facing on top. One last thing which I think is important to put in is I'm just going to notch the paper so that you can line that up with your sleeve pattern, knowing where that slit's going to fall.